All right. The New York Rangers and Florida Panthers have punched their ticket to the second round. Will the Avalanche be the next team to do that in their series over Winnipeg? Can they finish this thing off in 5 games? We'll talk about that. Today's episode of Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
Your Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in, making it your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. Make sure you're following us on social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter X, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram and Threads. Questions, comments, concerns, and opinions, lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. And make sure you're following us on our YouTube channel. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live. And make sure you're also subscribed to our subtext. Link to that's in the show notes below. And when you do, chat with Kyle and I one-on-one. Get your opinion on everything Avalanche related, which we share on this very podcast. If you're watching over on YouTube, not only are we sporting our Bluey shirts today, we will be getting to the rest of what's going on in the postseason. We haven't really done that yet, so we're kind of checking in on the other series going on. Obviously, like I said in the opening, Rangers have moved on. Florida has moved on. What are we seeing? What are we seeing in some of these other series? We'll check in on Gabe Landeskog. You're seeing him skating more. Has anything changed? Do we feel like anything has changed in a potential return? Because we're coming up on that May 10th date, which Jared Bednar said, that it's that at a minimum, because that's about, that is the year when they had the most recent operations. We'll get to that a little bit later. Where we're going to start, obviously, is the next game for the Avalanche and the Jets. We're going to game 5. Avs are up on this thing 3-1. You want to put it away as quick as possible. I'm one of those guys where sweeps are very, like, for the Rangers, like, yeah, they swept Washington. That's fine. Like, rest is good at this point in the season. I don't buy into the, there's all rust. You've played around 90 games, at this point in the season. There's not gonna be any rust. So I'm all for rest. So yes, like, if you're the Avs, you want to put this thing away as quickly as possible. But on the other end, the Jets backs are against the wall. So they might, come out and with nothing to lose and give you their best shot. What are you expecting for this game?
And that's the thing that should scare you the most as an Avalanche fan. Nothing to lose. Backs against the wall. You come out there, and by the way, this series in games 3 and 4 have become chippy. And What's worse than a team with nothing to lose? It doesn't matter what you lose. You could be chippy. And hey, you can make it harder for the team that's beating you and advancing by getting chippier. So it's something like, yes, if you do win this game and advance, you get rest. That's awesome. You get to sit back, and we're going to talk about the rest of the league in a little bit, but you get to sit back and do some advanced game planning for who you will possibly face. See how they match up, kind of get an idea as you're sitting back on your couch, licking your wounds, waiting for your next opponent. But Winnipeg, again, has nothing to lose. They could be physical. They could get out there and try everything they could possibly do to make it hard for you to advance and them prolong the series. So the Avalanche have to be cautious. They need to stick to what they're doing because it's working, but they have to be careful because they could slip into a trap. Granted, your power play is awesome right now, 4th in the league. That's awesome, but don't fall into Winnipeg's game plan. Stick to what you've been doing.
I think for the Avalanche, like, the way they've been playing the same way for 4 games now. So I don't expect them to change anything because it's proven that it's working over the course of 4 games. So you continue to do that. I can't sit here and say, like, wow, I would expect them to come out and be, a little bit like lethargic or be, take their foot off the gas. I think they want to end this thing as quickly as possible too. But yeah, you're going to get your best shot from the Jets without a doubt. They're going to go. They're not going to phone it in. They're not going to pack it in. Why would they? They were a team that I'm sure they expected to go pretty far. So to be down and their season on the line, yeah, there's no doubt you're going to get best shot. But for the Avalanche, it's continue to do what you do and play with even more emotion right now, because Winnipeg is going to bring it. They're on home ice. That crowd is going to be what they have been. So for Winnipeg, the thought process is, let's win on home ice, go back to Denver, and try to steal one. Try to steal one, and then we're back here again for a game 7, and then we all know game 7s. All bets are off for game 7s. Anything is possible. That's a long haul for Winnipeg, the way that this series has been going, the way that the Avalanche have been playing, the way Winnipeg has been playing. But that's their mindset right now, is get this one, steal one in Denver, and then we're back here for game 7. But the Avalanche just continue to play how we've been playing. Don't change a thing, but don't let up, because you're going to get your best from the Jets.
And like the little extra added on, we don't think about this like stateside, but like in Canada, there hasn't been a Stanley Cup winner since '93. And for Winnipeg, you want to be one of those teams. You have Connor Hellebuck having an incredible year. You want to be one of those teams. I know you have Vancouver and Edmonton also there, but you don't want like that to restore the cup to Canada. That's one of those extra storylines that they add to their season, and you don't want to watch one of your Canadian peers go win the cup when you have, honestly, this is one of the best years Winnipeg has had in recent memory, if not ever. So this is
It's a great year for them. Yeah.
You don't want it to end this way, especially looking back in the last game where you had to pull Connor Hellebuck, and you have so much talent on this team. You don't want it to end here against the Colorado Avalanche, who, by the way, used to be a Canadian team. So there's a lot of emotion, and you're in their building. This is one of those games that if the Avalanche do drop this game, you don't want to have to fight this going, give them a shred of momentum, because it's going to be hard. It will stretch to 7 if you do drop this one, because this is a big game for the Avalanche, and you do not need to take your foot off the gas pedal.
I'd also like to thank the NHL, and I'm saying that tongue in cheek, for announcing the Vezina finalists.
Oh my word!
Before this, we all knew Hellebuck was going to be a finalist. We all know he's going to win it, but they announced the finalists for the Vezina, the 3 finalists, and obviously he was in that. But to do it like the day before the next game, when he's been playing poorly, and that it's maybe half embarrassment for him to be like, thank you for that, the nomination, but where I am right now is not where I want to be. So now he probably has the mindset like, oh, I got to live up to this. I got to live up to this, because everybody's looking at it like, I don't want to say everybody's looking at it like, oh, he shouldn't be. Clearly not. But you know what I mean? Like, they announced that while the guy's playing poorly, and that just might be enough to lift him up to have one of his Connor Hellebuck, I'm going to shut you out games. So thank you, NHL, for doing that the day before the Avs go off to face him again.
Or it could be added pressure. Like you put up that graphic, and like Bobrovsky is the only one out of these Vezina winner like candidates that have the possibility of advancing. So you don't want to.
They did Florida advance. Yeah. So
you don't want to be one of those that are only remembered in the graphic, and then when the awards come around, you want to keep going. You want to be there to accept your award and then go back and join your team in the fight. So this is added pressure, because yes, he's having a stellar season, but my word, this is not where you want it to end either. So going back home and having that on top of a Avalanche team with momentum, I don't think Hellebuck was too thrilled with that graphic.
Just the timing of it, I'll say. I don't think he was thrilled with it, but like I said, we all knew he was going to be a finalist. Some subtext input.
And you locked up there, and I'm very curious to see what everybody on subtext has to say about going into this, how everybody's approaching it. I'm like relatively mildly
Easton
nervous. Oh, there you go. And but I'm nervous but optimistic, and it's the first time probably this series I've been optimistic going into a game, but I'm curious to see what subtext says to bring me back home.
All right, let me get into it. So Easton says the only thing that concerns me at the moment is Mikko. The hardest one to win is the last one, so let's shut the door. He says a 4-3 overtime win. Have not had an overtime game yet for this, so I'd prefer to get the overtime game out of the way. At some point. It doesn't have to be this one. I don't care, but I just don't want it to be a game 7 overtime. Those are just way too stressful.
I can't.
No. So let's get that out of the way. Let's see. Coy says, I think the concerned Jets will respond and throw the kitchen sink at Colorado. I believe that the Avs can counter this with continuing what are doing defensively and not taking their foot off the gas. However, I foresee an absolute bloodbath like game 1. 50-50 chance on the W going either way. I say, and don't hate me, 5-4 game with the Jets forcing a game 6. I'm just not convinced that Georgie can handle the kitchen sink that is coming. I'm not going to hate you, man. Like it's a legit, I won't say it's a concern, but I could see that happening because, like, you know, the Jets season is on the line. So you're going to get their best effort.
And thankfully, with the way this team's set up, it's not squarely on one exact position's shoulders. If the forwards keep scoring and the defense keeps doing what they've been doing in the last couple of games, it's not solely on Georgie, but I've been proven wrong before.
Yeah, Avs fan forever. Avs are down 2-0 in the first, only to claw back to a 5-3 win. I think he just lists off the numbers. 29, 13, 96, 8, 62, and 9 all have goals. So that's McKinnon, Nichushkin, Rantanen, Makar, Lehkonen, and Parise. So he thinks, hold on here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So he gave 6 numbers, but he said 5-3. So we'll go 6-3. And that's 6 goals by 6 different guys. Hey, if that happens, that's a good game. That's a really good game.
And are we settling on Parise being one of those guys that we are?
I mean, if you're going Parise, that's got to be the empty netter, right?
Got to be.
Madam Battleaxe, where'd she go here? Because she mentioned something about not like she was not doing surgery. Remember, she said that she was in. So she's like, "Don't worry, it was after the fact." Where the heck did that comment go? I can't. All my operating. There's that one. I don't know where it went, but she said that don't worry, it was everybody was stitched up and everybody was okay. So. But she feels good about this game too.
Hard to get a heart reading monitor when you're listening to Avs games. It's probably through the roof.
Oh my god! And then where is it? I thought I just had it. I lost it again. I don't know, but she's thinking for a win. She's always an overtime person too, Madam Battleaxe. So I think she's gonna. It's gonna be one of those. She's gonna predict it till it happens, type of person. So
give me a just regulation win, please.
Just get it over with. Yeah.
It's just round 1.
I know, right? So we had more Gabe Landeskog, another Gabe Landeskog sighting. We've had many of them. Has anything changed? Do we feel like anything has changed when it comes to Gabe Landeskog? We're going to discuss that coming up next. All right, but first we're going to take a quick time out, and we got to pause to talk to you about, of course, my favorite game right now, Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. We've talked about this before, but there's just so much good stuff in this game, and you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. Unique stickers that you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasures or a robot Plinko type machine, which was a lot of fun, by the way. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything when you win or rent frenemies, I should say, maybe. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now on Google Play or the App Store. And like Wayne Campbell said, game on. You liked that one, didn't you?
I did.
All right. So Mr. Gabe Landeskog, we saw some more footage of him skating. He's been doing a lot of skating on his own. And it's one of those things where people are like so focused in on some of the things that he's doing. Like he's skating backwards faster, and he's doing C cuts better, and it's all just skating. I've seen very little like stick and puck handling right now. I'm still not feeling like he is going to come back in this postseason. And I will kind of more use this towards, and with that in mind, with my mind thinking like I think he's still on track to come back start of next year. I think at this point, it's good that there hasn't been at least a setback, because we heard from Chris McFarland saying if there is any setback, it's not just like, oh, he just needs an extra week or two to progress to the next stages. No, if there's a setback, it is back to square one of another year lost. So I'll say that, like, we haven't got to that part where there's been any setback, but I just don't see in how he's skating around, which great. He's skating around. He's got a little bit of speed in him. He's not zooming up and down the ice. I don't really think in my mind anything has changed if Gabe Landeskog is going to come back for this postseason or not.
All right, everybody gather around. As faithful, I love you to death. Look, I read the comments. I try and respond to every single one of you guys. Let's just be real here, and I want to just address this now. We do not need the captain in this playoff run.
I think that's the other part of it, man. You don't really need him, and that's not a slight on Gabe Landeskog.
Like, and I know what he brings. I get it. I understand. I know who Gabe Landeskog is. I wear his shirt all the time. I know everything that Gabe Landeskog brings to this team, what he can be when he's 100%, what he has been to this team. Let him continue to do his little skating around, because honestly, these little videos of him doing his little cuts and his little, fish leg thing out there, that's all wonderful. That's great. That's something great in my timeline. But it's also showing this current Avalanche squad, which is complete top to bottom right now, that this guy has been trying for years to come back to this team. We need to step it up a little bit, because we are here. We're playing. We don't need to take this for granted, because he's trying to come back, and we need to keep pushing forward. Like, it's great that he's out there talking to the guys, getting them fired up, but he does not need to be in a playing role right now. So let's just stop that, and we'll talk about that in the off season, but no more this year.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just don't feel like the only way that the team would benefit from him coming back is just the high that they would get that their captain is back, and that's why I kind of wish in some for something like this, like the NHL had guys on your bench that don't play, like NBA. There's guys on NBA bench that don't get a second, right? So if that was the case, if you had extra guys on your bench that never played, this could be a Willis Reed moment where he just comes out on the ice, does a couple shifts, and then just sits the rest of the game. That would be enough for the team, for the home crowd to just go nuts, and then maybe throw him in if you're winning to maybe get an empty netter or something like that. You know what I mean? But hockey isn't that way. So I don't feel like, because what happens, man, like if he gets out there in his first game and something things tighten up or something, or he just doesn't feel 100%. And I know they wouldn't put him out there if he didn't feel that way anyway. But it's different when you get into game speed. So, and what if something happened? Now he's got to come out, and now you're down a guy, and that's huge. That is huge for playoff. It's huge for any game when you lose a guy. But for a playoff game, it's all the more important to have and we're seeing it firsthand, the Avalanche playing with all four lines rolling right now. So I love me some Gabe Landeskog. This is not that I don't want him back. I just think, again, with timing, they're playing well right now. I don't see what he would bring other than just giddiness from the team and from the fan base.
The only thing I will sit and I will pen a letter to Gary Bettman right now, petitioning for this to happen. I don't want to see Gabe Landeskog take a shift. I don't want to see him out there skating around waving. I don't want to see a skate to ice from Gabe Landeskog in a regulation arena. I want to see him in one of those cool blue sweatsuits that all the assistants are wearing. I want to see him come out, stand right next to Bednar, no hat, don't cover that luscious head of hair. Let him stand right beside Bednar in Ball Arena. And you thought all the small things coming back was a big deal? Let him stand next to Bednar. I feel sorry for whoever the Avalanche are playing that night. It will be a win 10 to nothing. And they're pulling every goalie in history at that point.
Yeah.
That will be an elation. That's what needs to happen. It won't happen, but that's the only capacity that Gabe Landeskog needs to occupy, even in a fantasy sense, this year.
I wish they could do that in the NHL. Again, like in the NBA, when a guy is injured, he can be on the sidelines wearing a suit and, in a sense, be a coach. He talks to the players during timeout and stuff like that. I haven't really looked into if that's against the rules for the NHL, just having an extra guy on the bench as a coach. Maybe you're only allowed
They're paying him.
so many. I know, yeah, but it might be like in the NHL, you can only have X amount of guys on the bench as coaches. That's what I'm assuming, because Bednar said it multiple times. Like he's gone on road trips with them, and he's great to have around. Great to have, during morning skate in the locker room. We'll put him on the bench if it's not against the rules. For some reason, I think it is, because I genuinely think if it wasn't, he'd be there. He'd be there, and that it'd just be for the players. It'd be awesome to have him right behind him, just throwing out words of encouragement, things that he's seeing, and then obviously the fan base would love it. But I can't imagine a player who's a current player could do that. I don't know. Again, I just think it's another NHL, how it's different. Because he's not like sitting on the bench with the guys. He's behind the guys acting as a coach, and he's not a coach. So, but I do think the NHL should change that.
Don't worry. I'll talk to Vegas and see if they have anything else in their book of loopholes. They'll figure something out for us.
If Vegas will do it. Vegas will just do it and not get any repercussions for it. And then everybody else can fall in line afterwards. But Vegas needs to do it first. You're right. Yeah. Vegas needs to set the standard of doing it. So, but again, wish them nothing but continued success in this rehab, because whenever it is that he comes back, that's going to be an all-time moment.
Yep.
If he comes back, hopefully he does come back. It will be an all-time Avalanche moment without a doubt. And imagine it being whether it's a playoff game or game one of next year or whatever game one home game. The arena is going to be the same amount of loudness. It's going to be a sight to see. Unbelievable.
Those tickets will compare to Era's tour tickets.
Oh, you think?
Oh, you tell me Gabe Landeskog's coming back. Everybody wants that ticket. Everybody.
Gabe Landeskog going on tour with Taylor Swift. Get your tickets now. He's the opener. All he has to do is just come out and stand there, and people go crazy. All right, let's take a check-in around the NHL. What's going on? What are we seeing? Who's playing well? Who's not playing well? We'll just kind of take a jaunt around the postseason in the NHL, and we'll do that next. All right, let's hear from FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose, and you bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, that is America's #1 sportsbook. All right. Most of these series are in full swing. Obviously, the Rangers have moved on in a sweep of the Capitals. And moments before we recorded this, Tampa has been eliminated by the Florida Panthers 6-1 in that game. So darn. But all the other series are some are 3-1. You got the Canucks and Preds. Canucks absolutely stole one in Nashville the other day. That was a stunned silence in that game. where they score multiple times in the last 3 minutes and then in overtime to win that thing in Nashville. That goes up 3-1 for the Canucks. You have Edmonton. I know it was a 1-0 game the other day, but they're really kind of in command of that series against the Kings. Stars and Golden Knights. That is going on as we're recording right now. 0-0 halfway through the first. 2-1 in that series for Vegas. And Maple Leafs and Bruins. Bruins very well in command of that one, 3-1. Hurricanes and Islanders, same with the Hurricanes. They're up that 3-1. And I think that's all of them. So what are you thinking? I mean, we're watching a lot of hockey, but what are you taking away from some of these other series?
The West, it's definitely looking a lot better than I anticipated compared to how the East. I granted the Rangers advanced, but I mean, you hold Ovechkin to nothing throughout the playoffs. That's going to happen.
Yeah.
When it comes to the power struggle in the West, everything is kind of settling to how you anticipated it to go. The bigger story in the East is these teams that are getting knocked out. You hear when and if Toronto's out, that team's getting broken up. That's going to be a power struggle for next year.
Yeah, I mean, there's just infighting now, and
Yes.
you don't like to see that, but I mean, it happens all the time, but it usually happens behind closed doors. And every once in a while, you see it blow up on the bench between players. It happens, and I think because it's the Maple Leafs, it's getting blown up even more. We'll see what happens in the offseason, but that's not good. Like when you're down 3-1, that's happened. Boston's really in command of this series. You just don't think that the Maple Leafs can do anything. It's so different between that series and say like the Vancouver series, which has been pretty close, and Nashville has been was 3 minutes away from tying that series up. So that could be like, for Nashville, it could be like so demoralizing that they don't even show up for the next game, or they could look at it as like, we had them and we can play with these guys. So let's bounce back. But for like Boston, Montreal, or excuse me, Boston, Toronto, you just feel like that series is just waiting to be over.
And like the same stakes are there for the Carolina Hurricanes. And you knew that if they couldn't find success this season with how it's constructed in Carolina, that team is also getting blown up. And then for all those that wish that Sidney Crosby was a member of the Avalanche every single trade deadline, once these pieces in Toronto start floating around and start looking for new destinations, does Sidney Crosby stay in Pittsburgh? Do they build up there? Do you move pieces like Sidney Crosby out to make room for this new Pittsburgh Penguins? Like, there's a lot of things that are going on that could be interesting for next year. But when it comes to the West, how we were all scared of Nashville coming into the playoffs, that's kind of quieted down a little bit. And Vancouver's still doing this with suspect goalie play right now. So that's something to keep an eye on. But that Dallas Vegas series, I hope it goes to 7, and I hope everybody is bruised and hurt and just kind of get into that next round, because Colorado gets if they advance, that's who you get, the winner of that series, and that's a physical series.
I don't think I'm not going to say anything like Carolina will get blown up in the offseason. It depends on how far they go. I mean, they're going to win this series. I can't see they're up 3-1. That last game went to overtime. Obviously, anything can happen there. So Islanders got one. I think the Hurricanes, they wrap that thing up. So they're a good team, but they're one of those teams that they are like the current Avalanche before the Avalanche won the cup. Just couldn't get over that hump. And a lot of people had their doubts about the Avalanche until they finally did it. So, can Hurricanes do it? Yeah, they just haven't shown that they can do it yet. So, I mean, if they make it to the Stanley Cup final and even lose, I don't think they get blown up that much. I think they add a couple pieces here and there, make their team a little bit better, and go for another run. But they're a very solid team that just, they hit a wall at some point in the postseason. They haven't done it yet. But we have to see how the whole thing plays out before I'm going to say that, massive changes need to be made there.
Yeah, they're just a step above Toronto. But again, you said that losing the Stanley Cup final, like, Carolina's going to get there. That's their big thing, because this is year 4 or 5 of this current construction in Carolina. What do you have to prove? Are you going to do 4 or 5 more years of this? Are you the Buffalo Bills of the NHL? Like, you've got to do something, because if this is how you're going to be, is that good enough for you? It's a lot of questions in the East.
I agree. This is when, again, like going back to comparing them to the Avalanche, those couple years before the Avalanche won the cup, I was always asked the question, like, is this like cup or bust? And my answer was yes, it is cup or bust. And they would lose, and then you rally and you go for it again next year. I think Carolina's in that same mode. They are a cup or bust team. They've been doing this for too long now to just be getting eliminated. I think they have to at least to make the final for them to feel like, okay, we've made the next step, and then anything happened in the final. Over on Subtext, we had some people chime in on this. Joe says, love watching the Rangers smoke the Caps. I hope they make it all the way. Boston series is going exactly as I figured it would. Tampa's window has officially closed. The Canes and Islanders has been, I think he means like a good hockey there. It's been a good series with the really Islanders, but I think that just shows you, like, the Canes, like when they need to, they can just step it up a little bit and put a team away. He also says Vancouver and Nashville are both bad.
Very true.
Well, Vancouver's a good team. Edmonton will get to the conference finals, just given who they will play in the next round.
It feels like that's how it's going to shape up. Like, that's an automatic, like, you see how that shapes up when you look at the other side of the bracket, like the West with Colorado and Vegas, Dallas, or Winnipeg, whatever, throw them in there. But that's just so suspect, 50-50 the whole way. It feels like Edmonton has their path to the conference final.
And the Rangers just got a gift in the first series. Like, Washington could be one of the worst playoff teams in recent history, or maybe in all of history. Like, they had no business being there. They just had a solid end of the season, and while the other teams above them just fell apart, and they kind of fell into the playoffs.
And it puts more weight on teams like Toronto and Carolina. New York put that team together pretty quick on how that roster construction is, and if they find success all the way, that all these Carolinas and your Torontos, year in, year out, same team, same outcome. Is this enough?
Yeah. Marie says, I can't decide what I want to happen in the Dallas and Vegas series. I'm with you. I hate them both. I thought Dallas looked scarier during the regular season, but not so much in the playoffs. She's right. We'll have home ice against Vegas at least, but still apprehensive about round 2. I watched Logan Thompson come up through the AHL, and that kid is legit. He's been constantly underrated until now. I somehow always rooting for him while rooting against the entire rest of the team. I know the feeling. Looking forward to tonight's game in that series. So it's when I go into a game with, like, either two teams that I dislike or two teams that I just don't care about, where I say, like, I don't care who wins this game. Something happens where I watch the game and then I gravitate to one team. For some reason, I'm like, I don't like how that team's playing. I'm going to root for the other team. And I didn't know how I was going to feel watching Dallas and Vegas. I find, because it's like, who do I dislike more? And I think I dislike Vegas Golden Knights more. I'm finding myself in some weird way rooting for Dallas, not like sitting there and like intently, like I do like Avalanche games, like screaming at the I don't scream at the TV when the Avs play, but you know what I mean? Like, but I find myself leaning towards Dallas in this series, and that just shows my disdain for Vegas right now.
Well, see, the thing is, you got to look at it from an NHL standpoint. You want Colorado Vegas because that's your two previous cup winning teams, and it's best on best.
The league has been putting up stats and stuff like that in terms of viewership. You get that second round matchup, and that will be the most watched. That might rival the Stanley Cup.
Yeah,
for viewership. Like, people will be tuning into that. You can guarantee it. Vargar says, I'm happy Toronto is on the brink of elimination. I'm always thrilled to see Matthews bounce. He does not like Austin Matthews.
No.
I don't have a problem with Austin Matthews.
That's like, a 30-minute episode later.
I think Florida is coming out of the East again. I love the makeup of that team, and they look even hungrier after losing in the finals last year. I got to say with Florida, like I just thought because they went on just like this unexpected run and they fell into the playoffs last year, I didn't think that they would be this team at the upper echelon of the league this year. They proved me wrong. And yeah, they are a legit team. So watch out for them. Rangers look solid in an expected sweep, but I don't love how they match up against Carolina, and I doubt they beat Florida to get to the cup. It just going to get tougher for them, obviously, as it does for every team. Kyle says, I thought the Dallas series would have been closer. Surprised Nashville didn't capitalize more against the third string goalie. I've enjoyed watching the lack of production from the Maple Leafs, Stars, and the drama surrounding them. No chance that core stays together next year since they haven't accomplished anything. You think so? I mean, I know that's not our show, but we'll see. I mean, when you have your core, you kind of ride with it. And when you have your core, if you feel like you've got the most out of them, then it's like, we can't go any further with you, then you blow it up. But if you feel like these are our core guys, we need to continue to build around them, then you continue to build around them. So
that's why I talked about the East a little bit more, because if I'm an Avalanche fan, depending on how this season goes for the Avalanche, start window shopping those playoff games in the East. They might be available if I'm Chris McFarland.
Shall see. And finally, Zach says Florida's looking great. I think the Avs will play them in the cup.
I have wanted that for so long.
Rematch.
Oh, I want.
Hey, how about another sweep? Let's keep the winning streak against Florida in the Stanley Cup Finals alive. Let's keep that going. So, all right, that's going to wrap it up for today. We'll be back tomorrow to discuss Game 5. Do the Avs wrap this thing up? We'll discuss that and anything else that is going on with the Avs. So thank you for tuning in and making it your first listen of the day. That's always appreciated. For Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan, I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast, and we will see you guys tomorrow.